Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to be discussing ocean plastic and inland mitigation. Presenting today will be Emily Beck, Nima Chaudhry, Michelle Fredrickson, and Andrew Mikos. I am Emily Beck. First off, we're going to talk about why garbage is a problem on our planet and how ocean plastic has become a problem. And then we're going to discuss how inland plastic contributes to that problem. And then finally, what can be done about it. So seen here is just some of the debris that's currently in our oceans. Refuse disposal is obviously a huge challenge in modern times, and especially when you consider the types of waste that don't break down readily are a big part of our waste. And one of those big challenges is plastics. There's 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic produced since 1950, and worldwide only 9% of these have been recycled, which amounts to less than 800 million metric tons that have been recycled. But when you think about 8.3 billion, it's not very much. And in 2012, the United States, we generated alone 11.46 million tons of plastic waste, and our recovery rate was only 6.7%. So how does some of it end up in the ocean? Well, the picture above is part of the Pacific garbage island. There's these huge patches. So as you see here, there's two primary patches in the Pacific, in the northern Pacific, and they're trapped in these eddies. And these patches are huge, but they're very difficult to measure because they're always moving, and so much of the debris is microplastics, and it's always shifting around, and there's only so much of it that can be seen by the satellite. So each year, 12.7 million tons of plastic waste are washed into the ocean, and 94% of the plastic that enters the ocean ends up on the floor. So an estimated 70 kilograms per kilometer squared of plastic, and that's what's on the floor. So what we're seeing in these islands is only 6% of the actual garbage that's in the ocean. So one of them is off the coast of California. The other one is closer to Japan, as you can see in the slides. So here we can see the effects that it's having on wildlife. The picture on the left is obviously a bird. It's a juvenile bird, and this is the stomach contents are so many plastics. There's not room for food anymore. And as you can see, it affects birds quite a lot. Around 1 million seabirds and 100,000 marine mammals are killed annually due to ingestions of these plastics. And the marine mammals, you can see on the bottom right, there's a sea turtle that mistaked a plastic bag for a jellyfish, one of their primary sources of food. Over 600 species are affected from the plastic pollution in our ocean.
Now that we understand the importance of studying plastic waste in our waterways and oceans and the effects that are caused by plastic waste, it is important for us to understand how inland plastic waste gets into our oceans. Roughly 80% of plastic waste in our oceans comes from land-based sources. The largest contributor is from uncollected waste. Another major source of plastic waste is from waste facilities located near waterways that are underdeveloped and unable to contain and handle the amount of waste that is moved through them. These plastics can be divided into two major groups: macroplastics and microplastics. An example of macroplastics' effect on marine life include the interference with marine life trying to surface or getting caught in plastic nets or bottle holders. Microplastics affect development, reproduction, and cause changes in gene expression. Limited research has been conducted to understand the movement of plastics after being discarded in both marine and freshwater environments. Current data and models are insufficient to link the source, transportation pathways, and fate of plastic debris. But we do know that most of the plastics in the ocean finds its way to the ocean floor. Only recently have research studies correlated plastics in riverways to ocean debris. In 2011, Millman and Farnsworth published a database of roughly 1,500 rivers and their plastic waste content. In 2015, Jambak et al. Used data from 192 coastal regions, estimated the mass of land-based plastic waste entering the ocean by linking worldwide data on solid waste, population density, and economic status. This was followed by Schmidt et al. In 2017, which modeled plastic movement from data published by Millman and Farnsworth. Plastic policy has received little attention in terms of international agreements and policies. This is in contrast to chlorofluorocarbons and persistent organic pollutants. Local policies have had small effects on plastic waste. These policies have included placing bans on the use of microbeads in single-use plastic bags, while global policies have also had little effects. The Honolulu strategy has had the largest impact, but was unable to significantly slow plastic waste accumulation in our oceans. This is due to the lack of binding contracts or punishment for not following the policies, along with the fact that most plastic waste is in international waters and countries are unwilling to take on the responsibility or challenge to control these. Policies will need to be further developed in order to have a meaningful impact.
The enormous amounts of plastics floating in our oceans is an environmental and public health issue and has direct implications to animal and human health. How? Well, from the environmental aspect, plastic debris is mistaken for food by marine mammals, reptiles, birds, and fish. When they ingest the plastic, it can lead to choking and starvation of marine species. 1 million seabirds and 100,000 marine mammals are killed annually due to entanglement in nets or six-pack plastic rings and plastic ingestion. This can disrupt ecosystems by depleting food sources. Furthermore, floating plastic debris serves as transportation for non-native, invasive species to new habitats, disrupting them. Plastics have hydrophobic properties and attract other hydrophobic substances. They are like sponges for chemicals already in the waterways, many of which are toxic. These toxic substances include POPs, or persistent organic pollutants, organochlorine pesticides such as DDT, and phthalates, which are used to make hard plastics flexible. Substances such as POPs are resistant to environmental degradation and tend to bioaccumulate. As Emily noted before, plastics floating near the surface are mistaken for food by marine mammals, reptiles, birds, and fish. The toxic particles are then ingested, and toxicants are now introduced into the food chain, becoming more concentrated as they move up the food chain. POPs, pesticides, and other toxicants become biomagnified as they accumulate in the fatty tissues of organisms. POPs exposures have been linked to declines, diseases, and abnormalities in fish, birds, and mammals. Fish are more likely to have tumors and liver problems. When humans consume contaminated seafood, there is a chance of exposure to the toxicants, which poses a public health risk. POPs, pesticides, and phthalates exposures have been linked to reproductive, developmental, behavioral, neurologic, endocrine, and immunologic adverse health effects. However, because plastic debris and its potential risks are only recently receiving scrutiny, the actual risks to human health are still uncertain. More research is needed to accurately determine effect thresholds for the plastic debris to human exposure pipeline. Although more research is needed to figure out the movements of plastics from production to end of life and the implications on animal and human life, it does not alter the need for action to mitigate plastic debris from entering our waterways to our oceans.
So while the picture painted thus far may be bleak, it's not hopeless. There are things every individual person can do to support the health of the ocean from anywhere in the world. You can see on this graphic that we created that by using reusable water bottles, bags, coffee mugs, and straws instead of plastic, the average person can save a massive amount of trash in just 1 year. Much of this trash is the type that ends up in the ocean, and if enough people did this voluntarily, it could be just as effective as any legislative action. After all, the people who make the biggest difference are the ones who do the little things consistently. Part of the whole campaign for inland ocean activism is that nobody should think their contributions are too small to make a difference. While awareness of ocean pollution may seem to be small in states with no direct ties to the ocean, several organizations are working to change this. They focus on river health, since rivers mostly feed into the ocean and are something that we can see in inland states. In this way, they try to combat the out of sight, out of mind problem. You can see the campaign image here for one such organization, the Inland Ocean Coalition, which runs programs in a lot of inland cities to reduce plastic use. Also, some legislative action has been taken on the city level. Several cities in Colorado have banned plastic bags altogether, and last year the state considered a bag tax. It didn't pass, but it was regarded as a sign of progress by activists. I mentioned the Inland Ocean Coalition as a major player in inland activism. They were initially founded as the Colorado Ocean Coalition, but became large and were asked to share their resources in other states, so they changed their name to represent all inland states. Here's a quote from their mission statement. "Those who live among mountains, rivers, and inland cities have a direct impact on the cycle of life." The Ocean First Institute is another local organization in Colorado promoting the same ideas. Both organizations have community education programming available and can be used to get various awareness programming. They are also open to invitations to cities to promote their cause. So this is something that anybody can do or can invite these organizations to do within their communities to promote the health of the ocean. So in conclusion, ocean pollution is dangerous and frightening, and there's no point in pretending otherwise. But while resources like these and activism in communities exist, there is still something inland states can do to make a difference. You can see our references. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.